bit of a promotional push again amongst the fans group. The London supporters branch have been doing a t-shirt to commemorate the famous victory in Rome in 1972, so it's the 50th anniversary. So if you want to grab a t-shirt, they're available over there. You speak to Howard or the lads. And you'll notice today, those of you that are on social media, that there's a line of other merchandise, mugs, etc. that are available to order, and the mugs are in the club shop. Paul, I'd like to present one to you.
Thank you very much.
We've got for large.
That'll go nicely with my mug that I've got as well. My tea tastes very nice in there.
Paul's like me. He's born in the famous year 1966. But although neither of us would see the final, I think Paul was just alive, but I wasn't. But of course, Paul is a World Cup winner, isn't he? Yeah. What I should have mentioned that there's probably 80-90 people. It's nice and packed in here tonight, but we'll have a lot of people. I don't know whether we know how many people are joining us live on YouTube. The numbers will certainly build up as people get in from work, etc. So can I just ask you to be mindful of that? I'm sure we're not going to be getting into the realms of any inappropriate language, but just bear in mind that it's not just us in the room. I'm sure
I'll try not to swear. I'm in a good mood today, should be okay.
Yeah, well, we all should be in a good mood, shouldn't we? Because what a difference a week makes, eh? I mean, from a fan's perspective, it was a really, really low point last week, and then we got the fantastic news that you were coming back. Let's just touch back on that England experience. It must be one of your highlights, certainly of your managerial career. Just remind us what you...
Well, I think it's a really strange thing, because when I set out in football, I left Carlisle in 1982 to go to Man City, and my aim, I obviously had all the dreams like you do as a kid, that you're going to conquer the world and I'm going to do all this and do all that, and you probably realise quite soon that maybe you're not going to do all the things that you thought you were going to do. But my aim to start with was, I left here at 16, well, I was 15, just about to turn 16. My aim was to get a pro contract, and then it was to get in the first team, and then it was to stay in football. And you realise that there's actually there's a load of times where you're quite low in football. So when you get the good times, you have to enjoy it. So it's funny, because I did an interview this morning when I was driving up in the car, and somebody said, you know, where does that stand? Your promotion. They said to me, if you keep Carlisle in the league this year, where will that stand with the other things you've achieved? And they actually said they're all on par, because you have to enjoy them. I've learned so many times that you have some dark days in football, and not this, it's football and it's a really good life and everything, so they're not like life and death situations, but they can get to you, you can have tough times. So whatever the success you get, you've got to enjoy it. And winning the World Cup medal was brilliant. I had a group of players who were absolutely brilliant. All I did was just enjoy watching them. I had to pick the team, I had to let people down when I wasn't playing, and all those things that go with. We need to get some oil on that door, because I'm certainly affected the interviews this afternoon. I need to get that. Nigel, there's a job for you. So it was just, they're all brilliant things when you have success. So getting into the playoff final at Stoke was brilliant. Getting promotion was brilliant. Getting promotion to the Premier League with Derby County was brilliant. 5 times at Wembley, unfortunately losing all 5 times, but brilliant. Into Cardiff and playing in that stadium. All of the things are really, really special things. And thankfully, the World Cup's another one as well, which was just brilliant to be involved in.
Just talk us through, if you would, what happened last week, basically. You're sitting at home. Do were you keeping an eye on the Carlisle scores?
Yeah, of course you do.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
it's a club I've always followed. Obviously, I was a kid here. My dad we used to go on the Warwick Road end. My dad would stand on the Warwick Road. I would go in the kids' pen down a bit lower down, because I presume it was cheaper. And then he'd hand me some money over to go and get me Scotch pie and the Bovril at half time. So I watched Carlisle for years, and probably up until I think I was 14 when I signed for Man City, and on a Saturday I then used to go and play in the A team in the Lancashire League. So we stopped going to the Carlisle games then, because my dad used to take me down there, and wherever we were playing in Lancashire, he'd drive me there, play the game, come back. So I either was watching Man City at home or just coming home really. So I stopped watching Carlisle then, but I've always followed the results. And again, it's something which I said today, is that when you go to a club, my sort of philosophy is you throw yourself into that club as if it's the best club in the world. You give it everything you've got. But with Carlisle United, it's slightly different. I wouldn't say it changes my work ethic, but it actually means a little bit more when you get some form of success. So it's got a bit of an added edge. And let's say, for example, at Bristol City, if I was at Bristol City and it all goes belly up and whatever, the worst happens and you don't get success and you get the sack, the chances are I'm probably never going to go to Bristol, and the chances are nobody in Bristol will have a clue what I am. But with Carlisle it's different, because my family all still live here, so I have to come back here, so I've got to do things right, and I think that's why it's just got that extra edge to it, and probably, if anything, probably makes me a little bit more nervous.
I was going to say, does it therefore bring a little bit more pressure?
Yeah, it does, and I mean it's a pressure in one side of it, but then it's a pull in another one, because the honest truth is, if I'd have looked at the league table and somebody last week would have said, for one of the other clubs in League Two, will he come back for the last 15 games? I'd have looked at the league table and thought, nah, I think I'm quite happy just staying at home here, and I can have a good life even though I'm not working and getting frustrated. I can live my life. Whereas now I got a phone call off a friend who's an assistant manager on I think it was Thursday morning, and all he said in his voicemail was, "Have I got the right number for the lunatic who's come back into this?" He said, "Get yourself ready for sleepless nights, drinking every day." He said, "Just be ready." And I've got the sleepless nights. I'm not drinking every day yet. It's not got to me yet, but it's a drug. Yeah. It is a drug that it's a fantastic drug. Maybe sometimes it doesn't have a good effect, but when you get nights like Tuesday night, that's a good effect. That's what we're all in it for. And as much as I keep getting asked, am I enjoying it? I don't really know if enjoying is the right word, but I'm sure at some point I'll enjoy it. Maybe tonight when my feet touch the ground a little bit and I get back to the house, I might just think, you know what, that's been quite a good week.
I'm going to ask one more question, and then I'm going to throw it open to the fans here. So please put your hands up. I'll bring the mic while Paul's answering this question. So when you said yes and you decided to come, has it lived up to what you hoped? Has it exceeded your expectations? Or?
Well, I think if I'm going to be really, really honest, I had no idea what I was coming into. I think I had it in my mind because I've seen all of the things that's been labelled at them, that they've got no work ethic, they're not committed, and all of the things that get labelled at footballers when you're losing. But I sort of made a choice not to look at any of the previous 31 games. I just didn't bother looking at that. What I did, it was a second half in a Sky game I was watching Bristol Coventry, and it was in the second half, and I got the phone call, and I was on one sofa and Jack was on the other, and she just looked at me and went, when I come off the phone, she went, "Have you just done what I think you've done?" I said, "Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah." So I've decided to do it, and it's just not normally how we work. We normally do discuss these things quite thoroughly, but I just said, I'm bored, I want to have a go, I want to go and help. And I went upstairs on the computer and went on to Y Scout, and I just went on all best actions of all the players, particularly the players who played in the game. Was it Swindon? Was Swindon the last one? Particularly the players that played in that game, and not best clips from that game, because I'm led to believe there wasn't many. But I just looked at the best actions of them just to try and get a feel of what they were like, and that's what I brought into it when I came in on the next day. You know, the club did it properly with Keith and with David Holdsworth, and I did say that, look, I'm willing to take it on, but I really need you to deal with the first bit properly, because I've been on the receiving end. At Newcastle, I was walking out the back door as Rafa Benitez was coming in the front door, which is not really the right way to do it. So, but it happens in football. Unfortunately for the previous manager, he loses his job, and I get an opportunity to get back in, and one that I was really, really pleased to take.
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you anyway.
Well, first of all, welcome to Carlisle United, because we're so glad to see you back.
Thank you.
I think for a lot of our supporters, it's the first time we've had any good news for quite some time. First of all, I must say that if I call you Peter,
I know.
I worked with Peter for such a long time that I still get you mixed up.
Not a problem.
But he knows nothing about it.
He gets offended when people call him Paul.
Yes, I know. He's told me that. But the one question, I went to 66 years I've been going down with beer. I know I don't look it, but I went to the Swindon game, obviously, season ticket holder. Left 10 minutes before the game, never done that before in my life. And I was in the rugby car park actually, the game was still being played, it was such a bad game. And I want to know, what the hell did you say to those players to change them from that game to what I saw on Tuesday night? Because they're totally different. Same players, but totally different attitude to the game. For me, they put their lives on the line, they're tackling, they're getting in. Yes, Rochdale were probably a slightly better football team, but what we gave, you know, we had so much energy compared to them in terms of wanting to stop them. So yeah, please tell me your secret.
Well, the truth is, there isn't actually a secret, is there? I mean, whatever job you're in, whatever your profession is, whatever line of work you have, whether you enjoy it or not, you've got to be committed to it. You've got to have a work ethic to be able to go out and perform your duties properly. And I think that's what they've just changed. And like I said, I don't really know what went on before. I don't know what sort of preparation went into it before. And I'll certainly say that Keith's way was totally wrong and mine's totally right, because that's not how it works. Players respond sometimes to a different idea, a different voice, a different face, a change. Sometimes players get comfortable and don't go out and do the stuff. Sometimes their heads scrambled like a box of broken biscuits, and maybe they were just scrambled. I honestly couldn't tell you what it is. All I've done, I came in and said to them, I'm going to give simple information, simple roles. I tried to put as many players into their own particular position as they could. I recognised solely by looking at some of the personnel that they were a little bit exposed because they were inexperienced, so I tried to just add some experience to it. And we went from, I'm led to believe some of the games we had like a total of appearances on the started 11 of sort of 500-600 games, which is ridiculous. That is so low. So what I just tried to do was I took a bit of a chance, because some of them probably weren't fit enough to play a 90-minute game, but I took a chance and put them in, and we ended up with the team that was out to Orient, I think was close to about 1,200 appearances amongst them. Two of them, the two centre-backs, Morgan and Maid, I think I'm right, I've probably forgotten, 16 or 17 appearances he had. Donnell had made 6, and that's your central defence partnership with 24 appearances. And for me, you've got to have a spine with a bit of experience in there. especially in this league, because this league's ruthless. It's horrible at times, but it's a really, really tough league to play in, and we just needed to add a little bit of steel to the spine of the team, a little bit of experience, and I think that's maybe what's made a difference. But again, and this isn't me trying to be smart or anything. I literally am speaking to the players. I've set them up. They're the ones who go out and do it. They're the ones who've changed their personalities and changed their attitude by literally going out and doing what they've done over the 2 games.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way you've changed this place in just 1 week is just absolutely incredible and unbelievable. Just the change in the city, the fans, the general atmosphere, unbelievable.
But again, if I could just say, you lot have played that part as well. You turned up in your numbers at Orient, you turned up in your numbers on Tuesday, you made the choice to come and be positive. That's nothing to do with me. I didn't flick a switch. So you have to play a part, and you've done your bit as well.
Okay, I brought a friend on Tuesday night. He'd never been before, and he thought it was absolutely brilliant. Yeah, so a week ago I wouldn't have dared bring him. Yeah, so anyway, my question is, I mean, we are where we are in the league. We're scrapping around the bottom of League 2, and you've got teams like we're 1 division below Accrington, Fleetwood, Morecambe. We're 2 divisions below. I'll offend somebody soon, but I don't know, Blackpool, Peterborough, Bournemouth. You even got Burnley in the Premier League. Yeah, I mean, where do you see the potential for Carlisle if everything gets pointing in the right direction? You get the owners, the board, the team, the players, the fans. Where should we be? Where could we be?
Well, the first part of it has to be in the Football League. That there's no point looking any further than that. I used to have this discussion with the chairman at Shrewsbury, Roland Wychley, who he used to talk to me about, we've got a lovely stadium, we're going to the Championship, and I used to say to him, have you got any idea what it's going to cost you to get to the Championship? Nobody's recording, or Roland's not going to watch it on Twitter, but he used to go on about, we've got a great budget in League 2, and I'm like, yeah, okay, you've got a good budget in League 2, but you've not got a great budget. If you go to League 1, you've got a rubbish budget in League 1. If you go to the Championship, you're talking the dinner menu budget you've got in the Championship. So, let's not get carried away. Let's make sure we deal with each thing right. And the club itself has a fan base that could easily be competing at the top end of League 1. But there are so many other things with going to being a Championship club, to attract Championship players of that level. You have to have a training facility. You've got to, I've tried to sign players from Arsenal when I was at Preston in my 2nd season, I think it was. I tried to get players from Arsenal on loan. Nicholas Bentner, Seb Larson. There's another striker, Arturo Lupoli. Three players I wanted to come in on loan, and they had a host of clubs wanting them, and they said to me, we're really interested in what you're saying, you've impressed us with all your flannel and everything that you talk, we would like to come and look at your training facility. And I actually just said, I won't waste your journey, there's no point in coming looking, because you've been to Derby County, you've been to West Brom, we can't match that. And I'm being really honest with you, I'd love it if you come, but you won't come to Preston North End because we've got a lovely training ground. So you've got to have an infrastructure in place, and that takes time, and it takes a hell of a lot of flaming money as well. And that's the nuts and bolts of it. So I can't really say where. It has to be a Football League club. It's got to be a Football League club. It showed the last time that we are, it sounds really arrogant, but we are too big for the conference, and that's saying with Wrexham, Chesterfield, Stockport, Notts County, whoever else you want to talk about in the conference at the moment. So we have to make sure we're a Football League club, and then address the issues that I don't want to talk about, address them, and then see where it can go and keep building and building.
When you're a player was there like a defining moment when you decided management was for me? What kind of made you want to get into it, and what's your kind of philosophy football wise? Because like a lot of our fans want us to be playing passing football, attacking football. Is that the kind of thing
Yeah.
you
Well,
want to do?
if I go back to your first part about what made me decide, I was so when I was coming towards the end of my career I was at Blackpool at the time. I was doing my coaching badges. I was doing a sports science degree, and I basically decided that I was going to go into coach. I wanted a job in coaching, and as a footballer, you don't have to do an interview. Your interview's out on the grass, so you don't literally sit and do an interview. So I asked Steve McMahon if he would allow me to apply for jobs to try and get an interview, just to try and educate myself on it. I didn't actually want the job, but I wanted an interview. So I applied for the Rochdale job while I was at Blackpool. I didn't get a letter back, I didn't get an interview or anything like that, and I completely forgot about it. Rochdale then signed me as a player. Came to the end of the season, and we were at Player of the Year do, and the chairman come to me and said, and nobody at the club had ever mentioned the fact I'd applied for it. The chairman come and said, do you still want the job? And I'm like, whoa, what are you talking about? I said, John Hollins is the manager. He said, no, he's not. He said, he won't sign a new contract, he's gone, and we're driving down to London to take his car and his laptop and everything off him, he's finished. Do you fancy the job? And this was at a Player of the Year do at the end of the season, and I said, I'd like to have an interview. I said, because I've never done an interview, so I'd like an interview. So I went for the interview. I have no idea whether it was a good one or a bad one, because I don't know what that is. And then that was on a Sunday, and on the Tuesday I was flying out to Hong Kong to play in a Masters tournament, because I was 35, I think. I was playing in a Masters competition. And he rung me when I was in the airport and said, while you're away, start thinking about being the manager for Rochdale, because you've got the job when you get back. I thought, oh no, that's not what I wanted. But when it sort of sunk in the flight over to Hong Kong, and probably with a couple of beers or a wine, something inside me, I thought, do you know what, I might never get offered another chance to do it, so just give it a go. So I went back, I said to them, look, I have no idea how to be a manager. I have never managed a group of people. I understand what football's about, and I can do that, and I can coach, and I understand all about physiology and psychology and biomechanics and nutrition and hydration. I've got all of that in my locker, but I don't know if I'm going to be any good at it, so I'm going to need a hand. You're going to have to help me. And I said, yeah, I'll give you every help you can. And they didn't, and I failed. Simple as that, I failed. I got an opportunity to come back here as a player, which I really fancied the idea of, because it gave me a chance to forget about management. Roddy got the sack, and I got asked again to take over, and then the rest history, and it all snowballed. So the honest answer is, at no point did I ever think I was going to be a manager, or ever probably even want to be a manager, but it just happened, and I felt if I don't take it, I could regret it for the rest of my life. So that's the first part. Hope that gives you an answer. The second part of it is, my philosophy is, I want to, it's really hard when people talk about philosophy and long-term plans and blah-de-blah and all this sort of stuff. If you don't get a short-term plan right, you don't actually get a long-term plan. Simple as that. And I've made the mistake of going into football clubs. This one, when I came here, it worked for me, because when I come in, it was low as a snake's belly. Everything wasn't, not everything, there was a lot of things that weren't quite right about the place that needed changing. So I looked to see people who had an affinity with the club, who could come in and affect it. So I brought John Halpin back in the footballing community, and I'm so pleased to see that he's still here doing a brilliant job, because he's fanatical about this football club. So I brought Halpin back in. I brought David Wilkes into the football club to look after the youth setup, and Wilkes is still here and doing his job, and good people came in to go with the people who were already in here. And that lasted for a while. The football didn't start well, but then picked up, and everything was fine. And then after that as well, for a good few years, Neil Mack came in, and Greg and John Ward and Cav, they all came in and did a really good job, and then there's been lots and lots of changes that have gone on since then, and for whatever reason it hasn't worked for managers. So when I went to Preston, I tried to do the same thing, and I ended up not having a first team that was right. The football in the community was flying, the academy was flying, we had some really, really good young players. I got the sack, and deservedly so, by the way. I'm not saying I didn't deserve to be sacked, because we didn't get good results, so I had to go. But then 3 managers later, these young players who'd come through the academy that I'd set up played for a manager and did well in Preston's first team in the championship. So I got to a point where I thought, why am I actually worrying about everything else when I should be a selfish git and just look after the first team and make sure that's right. So I did that. That's how I went about a few jobs. But I've actually got to a point now where at 55, I still feel quite young. I know I'm not old by any stretch of the imagination, but I've actually got to a point now where it isn't about me. I'm not really bothered about me because, I am bothered about me, but I'm not bothered about what it does for me. And it doesn't, I don't need, what don't I need? I don't need plaudits. If I had to retire now, I'd be okay. I wouldn't, I'd be all right. I'd have a nice life. I wouldn't have a brilliant life, but I'd have a nice life. So I don't have that pressure, so I don't have to worry about me. I just have to make sure the football club's right, and that's what I'm really focusing on. So in terms of philosophy, I want a short-term fix. I want to win the short term, simple as that. And the short term is now down to 13 games. I want to win this. I love winning, and that sounds really horrible, but when you've been in football professionally since '82, that's what it's about. It's about winning, because winning affects your whole life. Winning on a Saturday changes your whole week massively. I know. When I think anybody who's ever heard me answer questions before, when I got offered the Carlisle job, I was living on Brockhall Village in Blackburn, and I went home, and we sat down around the kitchen table, and my boys, I don't even know what year it was. How many years ago was it when I got a Cardiff? 15, 16 years ago, whatever it was. So I've got 32, 31 and 26-year-olds now, so take 15 off whatever and add up whatever that means. So they're at school, the kids. We're sitting around the kitchen table, and I said, right, listen fellas, I've been offered the Carlisle job, they want me to go as manager. And 3 of them went, don't do it, Dad. Like, why? What do you think? Why not Carlisle? And they went, no manager's job. We don't want you to be a manager again. I said, wow, why not? And said, we don't like what it does to you. We don't like on a Saturday when you're losing and Mum says he's leaving for half an hour, he's not in a good mood. And you're like, wow, was I really like that? So it takes over your life, and it's just about getting results. Now, I would love to play silky football. When I was really fortunate at Derby County, our football was magnificent, but we lost in a playoff final to QPR at Wembley. We failed to get in the playoffs, even though we had a brilliant season. We failed to get in the playoffs, and we got sacked. At Newcastle, we were garbage, and we deserved to be sacked very, very quickly. So that was different. When I went with England, I had brilliant players, real top players, and we played silky football. We played some great football, but we're talking about Freddie Woodman, who could take a goal kick and stick it on a sixpence. We had people like Victor Mori, John Joe Kenny, Jay Clark Salter, Kyle Walker-Peters, Lewis Cook, Josh Onomer, Ovi Ajaria, Adi Luckman, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Dom Solanke, talking like really, really good footballers who we're talking about here, so they could play silky football without me sounding disrespectful. We're in League Two. We're in League Two for a reason, and if we try and play silky football, we'll get our pants pulled down, we'll concede goals, and you won't be happy, and you won't be wanting to hear positive things tonight, and you won't send 1,000 to Oldham on Saturday, and we won't get over 5,000 on Tuesday night. And that's really that's the crux of it. We have to put a team out that wins Simple. So my philosophy is bloody win.
Sometimes when I've seen doing attacking football with actually been like really superb, there's not a lot I can see, but when I've seen like the bits close up, a lot of fans seem to get behind a lot more.
Yeah,
than the
I
attacking.
think everybody likes to see it, don't everybody? That's the one thing, going back to your point, your first question, the one thing I have changed, I've just said, let's go front foot, let's go and have a go. You know, Tuesday night was a bit of an example, because I thought we were getting spanked on Tuesday night. They dominated the ball. They were a better football team than us on Tuesday night, without any doubt. I'm quite happy to sit here and say that. But we had a problem, because the way they wanted to build with their back three, we'd set out a plan that I thought would work, with the front two trying to work together, in one closing, the other one coming round and their holding midfielder. I wanted our outside centre backs to try and deal with their two wide forwards, but they actually affected us, because they went really high and wide. The two wing backs were pushing on, the two outside centre backs were reluctant to go out and leave Morgan isolated, so they ended up staying in. Two wing backs ended up staying back, so instead of playing with a back three and two attacking wing backs, we played with a back five, so we lost out there. In midfield we had three players against their two, but Callum Guy his role was to screen in front of the centre back, so Callum Guy could not get anywhere near, because Joe Riley was too deep. Jordan Gibson kept having to go out. We were just getting dragged all over the place, and I'm saying to the bench, we're going to get beaten here. We're actually just waiting to concede, although we were waiting to get a goal against us to try and draw. So they said, what are you going to do? I said, sod it, we're just going to go for it. I'm going to go with the front three. So instead of sort of going backwards and saying, right, let's defend for our lives and take a 1-0, I thought, let's just go and have a go and see if we can actually take the bull by the horns and go front foot. And what it ended up doing, because we had a front three, they weren't able to build as comfortably with their back three. They ended up having to go longer. Dinell won so many first contacts, because he is an absolute man-mount, and he won his headers. Morgan Feeney I don't know what's wrong with him, he just loves heading and kicking people. So he did his job. Mells has suddenly looks really comfortable and composed playing at centre-back. So
that was some pass as well, wasn't it?
For the goal, yeah, it was. I didn't, you know what, I just thought it was him, I didn't even think who it was. But so everything, because we went a little bit more positive, it actually worked to our favour, and I get the feeling that, and I understand it, it's what people do. What you go in when things are not going right, you go into a bit of a safety mode, and I get the feeling it was like, let's just try and keep a clean sheet, instead of thinking, well, let's win 1-0 or let's do 2-1, whatever it might be. And so far it's worked. Trust me, there will be some bumps in the road between now and Bradford, but let's hope that further down the line, and we've given ourselves a nice little cushion in between us and whoever's at the bottom.
I had to be very interested in walking up that road. I was so nervous and that. Like, kept checking my phone just to see him.
We're fine.
Still doing.
We're fine. Yeah, Karen.
Obviously, the plan for the rest of the season is sort of carry on, stay in the league through the next 13 games. By then, you probably know the squad pretty well. Do you think, if you don't stay on, would you like to work with the club in the appointment of a new manager? Because you'll be in a good position to sort of advise them in what they want to do and how the
I'll do whatever. When I left the last time, it was me who actually recommended Neil McDonald to come into the club. Fred asked me, you know, who did I recommend, and I said, you know, for me, I think you should speak to Neil. And then a couple of weeks, maybe a week later, Fred rung and said, have you got any suggestions? I said, oh, did you not like Neil? And he went, oh, I forgot. So they rung Neil, and Neil got the job. And to be fair, at the times I saw Carlisle, I thought Mac had played some really, really good football. I thought he had the team playing really well in League One. Fred backed him as well. He was very good with him. But I have no idea what happened in the end. I don't really know. I mean, I've spoken to Fred and Neil, and neither of them have actually told me. So if it's not the one for me, and if I'm not the one for the club, then I'll help Carlisle as much as I possibly can. I just hope that they're still positive about me and want to ask me rather than run me out the city.
If you do go on a good sort of run of games, is there any consideration to sort of, you know, scratch that itch and sort of stick with the club, or would you like it?
I honestly, at this moment in time, it's just not even, it's not even anything to discuss, because I was asked to come in for 15 games. That's all I'm thinking about, and I know at the end of the 15 games I've got a wonderful invite to a wedding down south for 3 days the following weekend, and that's the only thing that comes after Bradford.
Paul, I'm just going to go back to 2005, 2006. I've lived with something personally. I told a lie. Yeah, not like me. You remember this game well. I'm sure a lot of people were there as well. Mansfield away. We need a point to go up. I think it was to go up rather than win the league, but definitely to get promotion. The away end is absolutely packed behind the goals. They've run out of space. So I was with a few fans, a couple hundred maybe, in the side, in like an ad hoc place really. And your wife was there as well. So fast forward to the 91st minute, Carl Hawley equalises, we're up. We start to leave the stadium and I'm walking behind Jackie, and she explains to the stewards who she is and the fact that she wants to get pitch side. The doors opened, the steward then looks at me and I just said, I'm with her. And I'm on the pitch.
I'd heard a rumour she was seeing somebody else.
And I've lived with that for 16 years. I'm just going to have my chest out.
I wouldn't worry about it, you'll be fine. Was this a confession night?
It was great to be able to savour that, those celebrations on pitch side. If I give you the choice of one of those players from that team to bring into the current team now, as they were then, who would you pick?
Oh wow, that's an interesting one. See, I
you could have
think,
2 or 3 if you want.
well, it's funny because Matty Glennon texted me, I think it was at the weekend, he was on the way to do a commentary game. He does commentary work, I think it's for Huddersfield still, and he was on the way to a game. He's going to Birmingham, and he texted me to wish me all the best and whatever. He said, what's it like, are you in trouble? And I just said, we could do with a Glennon, a Gray, who else did I say, a Lumsden and a Hawley, and then I said, oh, and actually if we could get a Bridges as well. So we just had a really good squad, didn't we? Let's be fair. I mean, it was one of them things where it was all cobbled together with little strokes of luck, you know. And again, you've got to have luck along the way, because when we were really, really low, but we were just through the lowest point when we got CVA lifted, and suddenly we can start to change the squad. And we were away somewhere, and we were going down on the coach, and I'm saying to Dennis Booth, we desperately need a left back. We have got to find a left back, somebody who knows the position, somebody experienced. And about an hour later on the journey, Dennis got a phone call from Tom Cowan saying, don't suppose you need a left back, do you? And Dennis was like, have you been listening to our composite? He said, why? And wherever he was in Scotland, was it Dundee or Dundee United, they'd gone into administration and they all had to leave. So we're like, yes, we do. When can you start? He went, Monday. So he came in on Monday, and then we find out that Kev Gray is completely bombed at Tranmere and are desperate to get him off the books. So we take Kev Gray. Andy Priest gets the sack at Bury, and I have this thing when managers get the sack that I always send them a message to say, I hope you're well, get yourself freshened up and just wait for the next one. And I sent Priesty a message and I just said, look, if you fancy just playing, you can come here. And he rung me up and said, would you seriously take me? He said, do you not think I'd be a threat? I went, I don't care about a threat. I said, if I'm rubbish, I'll get the sack anyway, whether you're here or not, so don't worry about it. So Priesty came in, and then we get Carl Hawley, who's been released on a free, and Carl's just scoring for fun. The guy who did our recruitment, Russ Richardson, worked with Chris Lumsden at Barnsley, and he said, I've been told by Lummy that he can get out and he's going to get paid up and you can pay him buttons. So we take Lummy, and he's brilliant. He comes in on a really small contract with incentives, and he showed a willingness to come, and he must have enjoyed it because he's still in the area, isn't he, and doing a great job doing the bits he's doing. Bridgie was a one which I asked around about Bridgie because I get tipped off that he can leave Bristol, funny enough, Bristol City. I get tipped off that he's going to get paid up. I ring around, people say, oh, don't touch him, he can't stay fit, he blah blah blah, all of these sort of negative stuff. And I thought, nah, you know what, let's give it a whirl, let's have a go. We end up negotiating a deal where again he comes and he's getting absolute buttons from us for coming in, and it's that little bit of quality. So that's whatever that quality is, that's what I would like to add to the group, because I remember a week in that promotion season where we had 3 1-0 games, and they were probably the horriblest games of football that I've been involved in for a long time in my career. But nobody knows, because at the end they just see 3 points and it's a 1-0 win, and Bridgie got a goal in the games because of one single, he was rubbish for the game. The lads used to slaughter him because he was hopeless in games. But he'd have one piece of magic and you win the game 1-0, everybody gets lauded off the pitch and everybody forgets that we've been garbage.
Yeah, I think the game you're talking about was Grimsby.
Yeah, that was one of them, yeah. They weren't even, I think one was Boston, something like that, one was Grimsby, not like the most exotic places anyway. Sorry, Boston and Grimsby.
You can't beat a 1-0 win. I always think the best way to win a game. Although saying that, it was a relief to get that second one on Tuesday. It's a long time since fans around me in the paddock have celebrated that hard.
No.
There was people on the floor, there was people on backs. It was
I turned
carnage.
around, there was people on the floor in the dugout. I missed something.
I think we're going to head to a break. I hope that's giving you a good taster for the second session, where we'll just pick up where we've left on, and if we bump back to 2005, or we talk about current, or Paul's views on anything football related. So we're going to have a 10-minute break, chance for toilets, beers. Can I just remind you about the raffle? There's some fantastic prizes. Your last chance to buy your tickets, that will be drawn during the second half, and then the winners will all be posted on the blackboard. So last chance to get your raffle tickets. Don't forget your pies as well. Taste them, they're great. And have a drink. We'll be back in 10 minutes. Welcome back, everyone. I can see a few of you enjoying them pies. They are good, aren't they? Right, if we just have some hush, please. We'll start back. I've got one or two people who I know want to ask questions. I'm going to start back with the conclusion of the conference season and the playoffs. You mentioned Matty Glenn and those penalty saves in the Aldershot game here, and then obviously going up the final, the huge support down at Stoke for the Stevenage game. In fact, the gentleman over here specifically wants to ask about. We were reminiscing about Stevenage in the conference. So there you go.
It was just about the Stevenage game. We'd already played them twice in the league and got beat, hadn't we?
Yeah.
And apparently the second game away, they thought they'd celebrated as if they'd won promotion. And what did you say to motivate the players for the final after the game?
Well, it's funny because I always think one of the things I've learnt in management is sometimes things fall into your hands that can be really, really effective. And we lost that game, and it was there were 2 late goals they scored, and on the second goal their staff all ran onto the pitch celebrating, and I always remember the goalkeeper coach, Dimitri Karin. He slid on his knees in the centre circle, which just sort of touched a bit of a nerve with me when I saw him doing that, really, because the game hadn't finished, although they'd won the game, and then at the end of the game we all came off, and in the when you get in the tunnel, it's a really short tunnel, it was a really short tunnel, and then we went off to the left and their change room was off to the right, and we got all our players in the door, in the dressing room, and I was speaking to them. I don't even know whether I was having a go at them, if I'm going to be honest, but I was speaking to them anyway. And you could hear them all whooping and shouting and banging on the door and trying to wind ours up. So our lads were desperate to get out to go and have a fight in the tunnel, and I'm stood there, the massive big frame of 5'7", trying to block these lads trying to get out at them, and I just luckily they actually listened to me, and whether it was respect or whatever it was, but they all went and sat back down, and I just said that sometimes in football you have to just lose with a bit of humility. I also think you have to win with humility, but you have to lose with a bit of humility. And my idea is that if you continue to do things right, you'll get your day. And it's that every dog has his day thing. You will get your day. And I can't say when your day will be, but you will get it. And when it all turned round that it was Stevenage in the final, I actually just sat and thought, wow, this is our day. Our day is going to come. So I was really confident. And then when the team sheets come in, and who was it? What was it called? George Boyd. When George Boyd was on the bench, I thought, God, you're a bigger clown than I thought you were to not play him. Because he was like, all of my planning was geared around trying to stop George Boyd being effective, because he was a right good player. And he was sub, and you think, wow, what are you doing? And I just think that's what the type of manager he was. So it was quite good to win the game, and it was funny because when we came off the pitch after celebrating, we go into the tunnel area, and Graham Wesley was doing an interview live on Sky, and the players just absolutely destroyed him live on Sky TV. So it was quite funny, really. And the other side of it as well was Dino Mamaria was one of their players, and he was really arrogant and like winding the players up when they beat us, and he was sort of the main sort of pest in the tunnel area. And at the end of the game he went up to shake Kev Gray's hand, and I think it was Kev and somebody like Chris Billy, and Kev Gray said to Siebes, who's that, who is it? And Siebes was like, no idea, and Kev said, I know who he is. He's that player in the Conference League, isn't he? And just like, they just walked off and just killed him. He just couldn't say anything. So it was it was a good day, that one.
Do you remember much of the celebrations afterwards? Was it a big party?
I think it probably was, but no, I don't remember. Funny enough, I don't remember it. No, I think we came back here. I don't even know. Did we come back here? Yeah. It was a blur. It was all a blur. It was, do you know, that's again one of those things where I could talk about when you get success, you just have to enjoy it. And as a player, you sort of go a bit crazy and you do all sorts of stupid things. But for me, when I've been on this side of the fence, I actually just like watching everybody else doing stupid things, lads, and to just sit back and just watch what people do and see what they get up to and actually just enjoy it. So that was the big part of it. I remember just sitting somewhere with a beer or a glass of wine and just watching everybody enjoy it, because I don't say it's hard work, but you lot probably all work much harder than we do, but it's a bit of a slog to get through a season, especially in that conference, and especially that was the year of the floods, wasn't it? You know, we had to deal with all of that, and there was so many things that sort of could have gone against us that we managed to pull our way through it, really, which made it even more special.
So you come down from the high of probably getting promotion the best possible way via a playoff final. When you sit down in the cold light of day that summer, what were your thoughts around what you needed to do to prepare the team for League Two? Because you pretty much left things as they were, didn't you, really?
I'd felt as though it was like a bit of a steady change of the squad, really, because when we actually got relegated out of League Two, I really felt as though the squad was good enough to come straight back up. I probably underestimated how good Barnet were, if I'm going to be really honest, because they were a really good side, and I probably underestimated them. And I thought Paul Fairclough, the way that he recruits, they've got a brilliant recruitment area where they can nick players from big clubs, from good clubs when they get released. They're always big, strong, athletic, and you need that in that league, and I thought they were a really, really good side. So it didn't surprise me when they turned us over here. Obviously I was disappointed because we were on a decent run, but it didn't surprise me. Didn't surprise me that they actually won the league. But we just had to get out of the league, so I knew we still had a good squad to go up, and if we could just add a couple more to it, I just knew that we'd do okay. But at the start of the season there was absolutely no aspirations to be thinking we were going to get promoted. Didn't for 1 minute think that was going to happen. You hope it, but I didn't really think that. But then as the season went on, you sort of get to a point where you think, do you know what, we're not bad here. We're actually a good side.
Were there any kind of pivotal or key moments in that season where you really did start to get that?
There was a double-headed fixtures where we went to Rushden and Diamonds on a midweek game, and the club allowed us to stay down in the air. I asked, rather than, we were playing Boston away on the Saturday, and rather than travel to Rushden, go back again on the Friday, I asked if we could stay down for a few days and train down there, and we stayed down there, and we beat Rushden
5-0.
Yeah, and then we went to Boston and absolutely smashed Boston, and that was a brilliant day, Boston, because we were coming up against Steve Evans, and his assistant is called Paul Rayner, and they are lunatics in the dugout. And I had Dennis Booth and Billy Barr, who were also lunatics. So I told them before the game, at no point were they allowed to even speak to either of Rayner or Evans. There was absolutely no distractions, and if either of them even had a conversation with them, I'd send them off. I'd get them out of the way because I didn't want any distractions at all. And when we got to about 3 or 4-0, Dennis has said to me, "Oh, come on, Simo, you've got to let me say something. You've got to let me say something." So I said, no, you're not. And then when the 5th goal in, I went, go and say it. So I just let him unleash on Steve Evans, and they were absolutely silent. They could not say a word because we just absolutely spanked them that day. And that was a biggie for us. And then, as I said earlier, those 3 games where we won 1-0, and I can't remember when they were, who they were, or anything. But there's those things that just happen, isn't there? You know, there was a time where I remember being asked to go on to Radio Cumbria for a breakfast show, and they wanted me. I didn't know they wanted me and Fred on, but Fred rung me and said, "Have you been asked to go on the breakfast show?" I was like, "Yeah, I have." Yeah, he said, "What do you think?" I went, "I don't really fancy it, to be honest, because we're rubbish and I'm getting a bit sick, so I'd rather not do it. I'd rather just focus on football." And I said, "What's it all about?" And he said, "Well, they want me to give you a vote of confidence." And I said, "All right." And he said, "Do you want one?" I said, "I don't really care, Fred." I said, if you don't like me, I know you'll tell me, so I'm not really fussed. We had a really good relationship. I said, "It doesn't bother me." I said, "If you don't like me, then let's have a chat." And he said, "You know I don't do votes of confidence. I'm not bothered with all that rubbish." I said, "Right, in that case, then no, forget it, just get on with it." And then I don't, sorry Radio Cumbria, but I don't generally listen to it. And I listened on the way in that morning, and basically they were going round town asking people, and I always remember, don't remember who the lady was, but the guy with the mic said, "Are you a Carlisle United fan?" "Oh yeah, I follow them, I follow the results." "Do you go to the games?" No, I've not been for years, I can't remember the last time I went." And they said, "Well, do you think they should sack the manager?" And she said, "Well, it normally works, so it might be a good idea." And I thought, wow, so I was going to go and sit in the studio and be a part of that conversation as I. So I just thought, do you know what, just get on with it, just do it. So I just put my tin hat on and just carried on doing what I was trying to do, and then you pick up results and suddenly everybody forgets that you want to sack the manager and everything's all right. So it's football, and I don't hold it against anybody, I don't worry about it, it's just part of the stupid flaming industry that I'm in.
We talked about the promotion game at Mansfield. The following week we got to Stockport to seal the title, and of course you spent some time later on at Stockport. Memories of that particular?
Well, I'd made a decision that I was finished as a player. We played Bury away before Christmas on I think it was a Friday night. It was a really cold night, I remember that. And we won the game. We were winning 1-0, and somebody, don't know who it was, went down the right wing, and I was coming in from the left-hand side. I was playing wide left, and as the ball was coming across to me, I've had a little look over my shoulder. I could see that there was somebody coming. And actually a player who I then went on and managed, a lad called Simon Whaley. I could see him, and he was rapid, and I could see him out the corner of my eye. I could just see his kick coming. But I knew that as the ball was coming across, I knew what I was going to do. I'm watching it rolling, thinking, right, out your feet and just slot it down the goalkeeper's right hand, and you should really score. And as the ball was coming, my brain was saying, out your feet and shoot, but my legs couldn't do the job. My legs had just gone. And I'd always been told, if you're going to be a player manager, you need to have a good assistant who tells you you're finished, or you've got to have a pair of balls and make the decision yourself. And that situation, I thought, oh wow, I don't need this, because Simon Whaley came back, took it off my toe, and I've lost the opportunity. So I actually felt I was becoming a bit of a liability for the team at that point. So I looked over to the bench to Dennis and said, "Sub," and he was like, "Who?" I went, "Me." And he went, "For who?" And I think it was Peter Murphy, and I said, "Murph, get me off and put Murph on." And when I went over, he went, "If we lose, I'm going to get hammered here for taking you off." I went, "No, I'm retiring, that's me finish." So I made that decision. I knew I was not going to start a game, so I came on, whatever, just to have an old git on the pitch for the last few minutes of some games, and I played a part. Not particularly because I was physically able, but just because I could talk and I could organise, and I did that bit. And the Stockport game, I said, right, we're already champions, whatever happens, I'm going on for about the last 10 minutes, 15 minutes, that's my final game. It was game number 808, I'm finishing, that's me done, and I'm just going to hang my boots up. And that was how it worked out, really. And if I'd have known I was going to get treated so badly at Stockport, I'd have probably concentrated even more on that free kick, because if I'd have scored that free kick, it'd have relegated them. I hit the bar with it, so it would have been. I actually said to them, if I'd have scored from that free kick, I would have just ran straight down the tunnel and I wouldn't even stayed on for the last 5 minutes. I'd have just gone, finished.
And that would have taken it to 151 goals. I think you finished on 150.
In total, I think it was 176. I was told. It sounds like I'm a stato here. I'm not. When we went to some awards do, I forget. I had maybe it was my 40th birthday party, and Jeff Haff had got a shirt signed, and it had 808 on the back of it. And I'm like, what are you doing? What's 808? And he said, that's how many appearances you've made. And I would not have had a clue if that was the number. In fact, I had to correct somebody. I had to do a fans forum last night at Derby County. And the guy who was hosting, he said, oh, you made 700 appearances. I went, whoa, hang on a minute, I made 808. Taking them off me. So I don't know where he got his facts from as well.
You mentioned Jeff Haff, and obviously it's been covered this week. You brought him back in the club on a part-time basis. Is that just a question of getting good, reliable, friendly faces around you?
Yeah, definitely. Not around me though. I've got enough friendly faces around me. I just needed somebody who I know could come in and actually influence players and not influence, help players, because he's a really good personality. He's a bubbly character. He's got a bit of banter about him. He's very good, whether it be in the gym, whether it be on a treatment table. And we've got Ross, who strikes me as a really good physio. I just felt that another pair of hands would be good. We have a situation where you have to have a physio on the training field. So if we're training over there, or if we're training at Crichton, or if we're training on Gretna on the artificial pitch, we have a physio with us, and then we have a group of players here who are doing their rehab work, injured boys, and they've got no supervision. And sometimes that's fine, and the boys can be trusted, there's not an issue about that. But I also think they can work a bit harder when they've got somebody overseeing it. And also, if anything does go wrong, if there's an issue, we've got somebody there to supervise that as well and to help them. So it was more just around that, because I've been really, really impressed with the staff, I've got to say. The staff who were already here. I think Paul Gerrard has been fantastic. He's a really good character. Quite strong with the goalkeepers, in fact quite strong with the outfield players, because I've given him the responsibility of defending set plays. And I think they're a good group, and I just wanted to add Jeff to it, because Jeff is a fanatical sports fan. He likes Carlisle United as well. He's not fanatic. He's got another team that he's fanatical about, but he's a real Carlisle bloke, and I just think he'll add something to the group.
If anybody's out there got questions, just please put your hands up. Otherwise, I can get back.
Have you got any intention of bringing any more staff in, or is that it?
No, I've got no intentions at all, because I think we've got enough. I'm certainly not coming in here to try and spend any money, any of the club's money, any more than the club's money. I am stealing and borrowing favours off people. Jeff's coming in because he loves the football club, and he's coming in for nothing. And it's not even a case of I've been told I haven't got it. I've just told him, you're doing me a favour, and I'm just doing whatever I can to help the football club without actually costing them any more money. Simple as that. Come on, you must have something to say. In the FA, we had this thing where we had to, the way that we dealt with the players in the FA was we gave them ownership, so we had to ask open questions. So I couldn't say, are you okay? Because then they'd just say, yeah, and it's end of conversation. So I'd have to say, so what would you like me to do to make you feel really good? And then they'd have to then tell me some story, and I had to do it. And the thing is, if they don't answer me, I had to just sit And I've sat in team meetings for 5 minutes with nobody speaking. So I'd say, what else do you need to know, fellas? And they'd all look at each other and I'd just go, sit. And it's who breaks first.
Right. Well, I think you should be Prime Minister.
Not a chance.
And second of all, do you remember the Aldershot playoff game down here when the Warwick Road end spilled onto the pitch when there was one penalty to go?
I do. I hadn't got a clue what score it was either, though. That's the thing. We were looking at each other, wondering what was going on. But those nights like those, they stay with you, don't they? Those memories. That's why, I know that's why you support football teams, and I go into management. I'm in management because I love that stupid stress of being in the technical area where you just lose all sense of what's going on. And when I worked with England, it was a brilliant job. It was an absolute, so comfortable, really easy job, dealing with that sort of players in that environment. I live about 20 odd minutes from St George's Park, so it was perfect for me. But I used to go scouting games and I'd be sitting in the director's box at some lovely stadiums watching managers losing their head thinking, oh, I really want that. I want that back again. And that's what made me want to come back into it, to be honest with you. And everybody kept saying, don't do it, you'll regret it. But I'm all right at the moment, so hopefully it'll stay that way.
I guess you keep yourself up to date with current affairs in football. I'd like to just ask you about the Tracy Crouch's fan-led review. Are you familiar with some of the recommendations that have?
No, I've got to be honest with you, I'm not. I don't really know anything about it, if I'm going to be really honest with you.
Okay.
Can't help you.
One of the key themes there is making clubs, particularly like this, a part of the community. I'm sure you will. You'll endorse that.
That's actually something that we tried to do here, my first time round, and I think it was really good. I mean, I talked about bringing Halpy back into it, and Halpy's really good. We had a thing that it wasn't. I don't think it was in the players' contracts, but we made it a rule, and it was a fine if they didn't turn up. That every week of a home game, I think it was a Thursday, 2 players had to go into a local school, and we gave something like 50 or 100 tickets to the school, and the players went in, and I went out too. I remember going, I think it's National Book Day today, isn't it? I think I've heard on the radio. I remember going in and reading the story in an assembly. I remember going into a school up in Harrowby and doing a cookery lesson. And the players used to go out and you'd have so much kickback from it that players didn't want to go. And then once they got there, they were brilliant, they loved it. Because players want to go and be part of it as well. They want to go out there because you go into schools and the people who turn up to any sort of community programs, they actually want to be positive. So it gives them a really good feeling going out. And I mean, I wasn't very good at cooking, I'll be honest with you, and I'm not particularly good reading stories, but I did it, and you just get on with it. So I think it's a brilliant idea because really, the football club is the community. It's a focal point for the community, and I know that through the floods, everybody rallied round, and the football club gave everybody a bit of a purpose because everything else was so crap at the time. And then in the promotion season, the second promotion season, we had a really good feel about it. And you just have to look what's happened in 7 days through the players going and performing and us winning a game. And suddenly you get more and more people coming out. And then walking back up Warwick Road, I bet was a real pleasant experience on Tuesday night when you've just turned somebody over 2-0 and had a right good night.
Yeah, just take you back, Paul, to those early days when you were 14. I remember standing on Morton School Field with John Carruthers and him saying, I want him. What went wrong and what was the decision, to go to Man City instead? Because I know John was heartbroken.
Yeah, John, what a top fella he was. I mean, what a success story he was with getting players with Steve McCall, Steve McCall, I'll just digress. Steve McCall's a guy I rung last week and said, Steve, are you still living in Ipswich area? He said, yeah, why? I said, what do you do? I said, I'm a painter and decorator. I said, do you still go to games? He went, yeah, I love going. I said, you couldn't do me a favour and go and watch Oldham at Colchester, could you, on a Saturday then? And he said, yeah, I'd love to. I said, well, I can't pay you. I said, but I'll get you a ticket and a car park pass. And he said, I wouldn't take your money anyway. He said, I'm going, I'll do it. And he went to the game and he sent me a report. So anyway, that's me digressing. So top people, they'll just come and help. So Steve McCall, David Geddes, Kevin Beattie, there was another guy, was it Gary, Robin Turner, Gary, centre forward, Gary who played local league football. He went to, there was loads of players and I went down. Gary McManus, that's it, yeah. And I went down to Ipswich, and at the time I was training here with Carlisle Reserves Tuesdays and Thursdays and trying to keep fit. I was going on trial to wherever, different places. And I got to 14 and Man City said, at 14 you could sign schoolboy forms, and Man City said, right, it's time to make a decision now, you need to go somewhere, you need to make a decision. We want you to sign because we'd like you to play in the Lancashire League with the under 18s on a Saturday. So we decided to make a decision, and I didn't want to go school holidays here, there, everywhere and touted myself about. So came to a decision between Sunderland, Ipswich and Man City were the three teams that I sort of really felt were going to be right, and my dad felt were really going to be right for me. I loved it at Man City, it was brilliant. Ipswich treated me like a king, it was unbelievable. Bobby Robson was the manager. I went down as a 14-year-old and I went into the changing rooms with all the kids and he was like, no, come in here son, and he made me change in the first team changing room, and which you could not do nowadays. It's just totally banned from doing anything like that, but changing with the first team players, and we're talking about, you know, like a team of Eric Gates and Alan Brazil and Arnold Muir and Frank Tyson, Mick Mills, Terry Butcher, Kev Beattie, a really good team Ipswich were in those days. This is, what would we be, 878 when they were in Europe. He wanted me to sign. I really felt as though I wanted to go to Man City, and my dad said, where do you really want? And I said, I really want to go to Man City. So he said, right, well, in that case then, you need to go and ring Bobby Robson about it. And I'm thinking, oh, how do I do that? I'm a 14-year-old. We didn't have a phone at home, so I had to go round to my Uncle John's house. I always remember it, round on Newdale Road. So I go round to my Uncle John's house, and I'm speaking to he wasn't Sir then, but Sir Bobby. And he said, I really want you to come to Ipswich. And I said, I know Mr. Robson, but I've made my decision, I'm going to sign for Man City. And he said, well, what are Man City going to give you? I said, well, they're going to give me a 1-year professional and a 1-year professional. I said, right, okay. He said, well, I'm going to give you a 1-year apprentice and I'll give you a 2-year professional and I'll give you £10,000 when you're 17. That might be different, Mr. Robson. So I said, I'll have to speak to my dad about this. So I put the phone down. I said to my dad, I said, oh, Dad, he's just said he's going to give me £10,000 when I'm 17. And he said, where do you want to go? And I said, well, I really want to go to Man City, but I know that £10,000 is a lot of money and we could do with it. And he went, no, he said, if you're good enough, money will come to you. You don't have to go and chase your money. He said, so just do what you think's right. So that's why I signed for Man City, and I don't regret it. And it was quite funny, really, because I got in I think it was the England under 18s, and Sir Bobby was the manager of the senior team, and I was in Lilleshall. And I don't even know why he was there, to be honest. We were on a little training camp, and I was at this vending machine, and I was just about to get some sneaky chocolate, and I felt this tap on my shoulder, and it was Bobby Robson. And he just said, I still think you made the wrong decision, you should have signed for me. So I just bought myself a bottle of water and walked off.
I remember when you signed for Man City, John Crothers crying in his lemonade and wine he moved on to because he thought it was less fattening.
No, it's I still don't regret it. My career's gone better than I could have ever dreamt. So it was a toughie, because it was a really good club that looked after me. But no, I always felt Man City was the right one for me.
Can I just ask a question?
I'll bring.
Yes, it's about what does a parent need, and what do they have to give up to support a young footballer? What did your parents do for you?
They absolutely worked the socks off to make sure that we lived a decent life. My dad's, I'm probably going to get this wrong, he's 83 or 84. He's only just retired about 6-9 months ago. So I think you have to have, I keep talking about a work ethic, you have to have a work ethic. My mum would work during the day, she would go and work nights, just to make sure that we had what we needed. So you've got to have that, and I think you've got to have a discipline about you. You have to make sacrifices so that when everybody else is going out and doing what young kids do, you can't do it. You've got to be sensible, and you've got to do your training and do all that stuff. And I think it's even harder now than it was in my day, because in my day when I was a kid, I would play football probably every single day of the week. If I didn't play at school, I played for Raffles Rovers with John Roberts. I'd play on a Saturday, I'd play on a Sunday, I'd play on a Tuesday night in a five-a-side league at Harrowby in the indoor hall there. I'm not sure if it's still there, it was a bit run down in those days, so whether it's still there I don't know. I trained every single day. I'd play for Man City on a Saturday actually, so I'd play on a Saturday, I'd then go and play for a team on a Sunday. Nowadays you can't do it. You've got to make a massive commitment to actually succeed in professional football. It's really tough, but I think the toughest challenge is, as a parent, not trying to live out your own dreams through your kid, because the rewards that go with footballers nowadays are absolutely frightening. They're outrageous. It's been taken away from the normal person on the street because of the rewards that they get. And I think the biggest challenge is actually teaching your children, and this is girls as well, because the money for girls is phenomenal as well, is actually teaching your children the value of money and how to cope with it. Because I've seen so many footballers. I've had a good life, I've had a good career, and I'm not saying I've had rubbish money, because I haven't. I've had good money, nothing compared with what they earn now, and I have seen so many fall off a cliff because of the effect that it's had on them and not being able to cope with it. And then suddenly you're a superstar and you're earning X amount of thousands, and then the next week you're out of contract and you're earning nothing, and you can't cope with it. And that's the biggest challenge for me at this moment in how young people deal with being footballers. So there's all the sacrifices, but there's learning to cope with it as well, and that's at all levels.
But how do parents in your day, how did they cope with the education side and having this sort of all-consuming football?
I don't ever remember my mum and dad sort of making threats about my schoolwork, but I was quite lucky really in a way, because at 14 I knew I was going to go to Man City. I knew then I was going to leave. So I was told that I still had to do my homework before I went out and caused chaos out on the estate, playing football on every street corner. I still had to do my work. I left school with decent grades in my exams, but I know my middle son Jake, as a kid, was a really, really good footballer. Everybody thought he was going to be like a real top player. I remember when he was about 8-year-old playing for Derby County under 9s against Aston Villa, and we drew 4-4. I was taking the team, and we drew 4-4, and he scored all 4 for Derby, and Daniel Sturridge scored all 4 for Villa. So he was that sort of level. I remember Bob Latchford coming to me and saying, "I really like your centre forward." And I said, "Oh, do you?" And well, he asked me that for. He said, do you think he'd come to Aston Villa? I went, no, because he's my son. So I've been through it as well, and you have to, we actually threatened Jake that if he didn't get the grades in school, he wasn't going to be a scholar at Blackburn Rovers, which is where he went. So there is that challenge, but I think nowadays, and I've sort of experienced this working with the England teams, is that when they get to that level, when they're at United, City, Chelsea, Liverpool, Arsenal, Spurs, wherever else, these kids, and we're talking, my sort of 3 years where I was working with the 19s and 20s, so they're 18 or 19-year-old. They're really wealthy lads already at that stage of their career, and the parents don't give a monkeys about the education. They're just not bothered at all, because they see the promised land and they can see all the pound signs, and it's really difficult. I'm not saying it's a fault, but it's a really difficult, nice but difficult situation to have to deal with.
Wow, that has been so insightful, Paul. Thank you so much for giving up your time. I know you must have 101 other pressures pulling on you.
Just to go home tonight, that's all. I'm looking forward to sleeping.
It's a really important part of life, something I need more of, I think. Don't forget to check your raffle ticket on the way out. The number's on the blackboard. I just want to put one final thing to you, Paul. It's not really a question. It's more like 13 games to go, over 1,000 going on Saturday minimum, and we hope for a really big crowd for Northampton because we've got a really good ticket deal. Have you got a message for the fans, particularly those that haven't yet seen the difference now, that are thinking about maybe coming back for whatever reason, away for a bit? Have you got any messages?
My message has been the same all the time, really, since when was the first time I spoke to you, Andy? Last Wednesday, was it? Last Wednesday was just give us a chance. Give us all a chance. I think we all want the same thing, don't we? We all want to stay in the Football League. Probably at the start of the season we all wanted to be top of the Football League, but that's not going to happen at the moment. So give us a chance, try and stick with us as much as we can. And I do like a final messages meeting to the players before we leave to come to the ground, when we had pre-match the other night, and my first one was, the fans will lift you, but we have to lift the fans as well. And all I'm asking them to do is go and work, tackle, head, fight if you have to fight, which they did at Orient, and do all of the horrible part of football that supporters respond to. And then if you do that, that'll give you a base to be able to go and play your football. Now, we've done the first part. I've told them that they haven't done the football bit that I really want, but if we do the horrible parts and we fight and scrap and battle and do all of that sort of stuff, we can't really ask any more. So I just want them to do all of that, and hopefully the rest will follow, and maybe we'll take a little bit better control of the games than we have done in the two that we've had so far.
And I'm sure I speak on the fans, from the fans, if you could take the message back to the players that we've got the belief back, we're right behind you, and good luck, and keep it going, and thanks once again for coming tonight.
Absolute pleasure, thank you for your time.